Hey folks, Tom Ballard, the Groundwater Guy, here with part 3 of our series on PFAS and agriculture. In this video, I'll discuss how PFAS contaminants in soil can impact crop yields. PFAS, per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, contamination in agricultural soils can have indirect effects on crop yields, primarily due to the chemicals' impact on soil health, plant uptake, and marketability of contaminated crops. Here's how PFAS contamination can influence crop yields. Number 1, soil health and microbial activity. PFAS contamination can alter soil properties and microbial activity, which are critical for healthy plant growth. Studies suggest that PFAS can disrupt enzyme activities in the soil, such as those involved in nutrient cycling, i.e. sucrase and urease, which are important in the nitrate cycle, potentially leading to reduced nutrient availability for crops. This could indirectly affect crop yields by impairing plant growth and development. Number 2, crop absorption of PFAS. Different crops absorb PFAS at varying rates, with some plants more susceptible than others. We discussed this in our previous video, part 2, in a little more detail, but as it goes, leafy greens, an example, lettuce and forage crops, i.e. hay, tend to have higher uptake rates of PFAS from contaminated soils, which can lead to significant accumulation of those chemicals in the edible parts of the plants. While this does not directly reduce yield, it renders the crops unsafe for consumption or sale, effectively reducing their marketable yield. Crops like grains, like wheat, oats, and corn, generally show lower PFAS accumulation in their edible parts, the grains or the ears, which means that they're less affected in terms of contamination. However, if soil contamination levels are high enough, even these crops may experience reduced marketability. Number 3, marketability and economic losses. Even if crop yields are not directly reduced by PFAS contamination, the economic value of contaminated crops can be severely impacted. Crops grown on PFAS-contaminated soils may be deemed unsafe for human or animal consumption due to health concerns. This has led to cases where farmers were forced to destroy their crops or halt production entirely. For example, in Maine, several farms had to shut down or switch to alternative crops because their products were found to have dangerous levels of PFAS. Dairy farms have been particularly affected as livestock fed on contaminated forage accumulate PFAS in their milk or meat, leading to product recalls or farm closures. Number 4, potential for crop switching. To mitigate the impact of PFAS contamination on yields and marketability, some farmers have been encouraged to switch to crops that are less likely to absorb PFAS. For as we mentioned earlier, grains and fruit-bearing plants like tomatoes tend to have lower transfer rates of PFAS from soil into edible parts compared to leafy greens or forage crops like hay. Research is also exploring the use of phytoremediation with plants like fiber hemp that can absorb PFAS from the soil without being used for food production. So in conclusion, while PFAS contamination may not directly reduce crop yields in terms of quantity, it can significantly affect the marketability of affected crops due to health risks associated with consuming contaminated produce. Additionally, long-term soil degradation from PFAS could indirectly impact yields over time. Farmers facing PFAS contamination often need to pivot to alternative crops with lower absorption rates or adopt remediation strategies like phytoremediation to remediate the issue or manage the issue effectively. So that's our video for today. Stay tuned for part 4 coming up. Thank you very much.